Live at 3:05. We're live on Facebook. Um, Anybody out there is listening to us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We'll be right with you in about 30 seconds. So we'll be live. We're live on Facebook. Yeah. You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower right here in Northport, Florida. It is absolutely gorgeous out there. It is a fantastic Friday night. Just keep in mind, I tell you this every single day, and I tell you right now, no one wants to end up in a trauma hospital anywhere up and down this coast. Please take your time, check your lane twice, get home safe. You do not want to spend the next few weeks in a hospital and ruin your holidays or someone else's along the way. I've got two extremely special guests in the house. One is a really good friend I ran into the other night at Giving Tuesday, Mr. Carmine. How you doing there, buddy?
Doing great, John. Great to be with you.
So,
and Vanessa.
It's been a while since you've been on the show, but tell us just real quick an overview of Northport Forward, and then kind of why you're on the show today.
Okie dokie. Northport Forward. We are a IRS designated 501c3 nonprofit community organization. We're incorporated in the state of Florida. Our mission is to shape the future of Northport. How do we do this? We do this by informing, educating, and inspiring citizens to become involved, educating using factual information and encouraging dialogue. And this past year, we've gone out with the city manager, the district commissioner, along with a lot of the city manager's staff, and brought the city to the residents in different areas, in Island Walk, at the Shannon Staub Library, at the Jockey Club, and other locations throughout the city to hear how the city is being run, for the citizens to meet their commissioner and to meet the new city manager. Now, it's been now over a year since the city manager has been here. He's been doing a heck of a job, and the residents embraced both of them, and along with the staff, and everything that was said. It was a great presentation on how the city is being managed, what the city is looking towards the future of the city, and it was well received by all of the residents.
And you've done some amazing work there, drawing the whole city together. The mayor, not the mayor, I'm sorry, the mayor too, all the commissioners and our city manager came up with a line. What is that line for the city?
It's a community of unity.
And really, it's kind of like a driving for you and staff members at the city right now, isn't it?
It certainly is. It's it's with everything going on in the world today, a lot of the bias, misinformation, disinformation. It's actually refreshing when we can come together as a community and look to make the city the best that it can be for all of us. And such things like tomorrow is the Poinsettia Parade. A lot of children will be there with their families and looking at all the different floats that everybody's worked so hard on. And it's just great to be a community. That's what we're about. So to have a slogan like that, it's important. And bringing the staff with the city manager and their district commissioner out to the public, like I said, it was greatly received. People flocked to shake the hands of the city manager, the city staff. They were taking pictures, selfies with the fire chief, with the police chief. It's great that everybody can get along like that. It's been too long, and like I said, with everything going on in the world and all of the politics that are going on, it's quite refreshing to see a community come together.
Awesome. Well, my community just put a little tag up there, a little comment. So I'm going to say hello to my granddaughters real quick in my community because they said hello to Big John. And I want to give a shout out to Ellie and Evie T. Thank you for watching Big John on the Facebook, and I hope you enjoy the show. So a 4-year-old and a two-year-old are watching the show today.
Awesome.
That's
But
awesome.
drawing the community together is what this is all about. And as far as Northport Forward goes, you actually were the first one to tip my hand to a new order that's out there that is going to be very important to a lot of people in our town. I'm going to go ahead and throw that order up. Would you like to go ahead and read that so people can understand what's going on?
I certainly wouldn't mind doing that. And yes, basically, on 11/21, the city issued a FEMA 50% rule emergency order. Um, just want to let everybody know that on December 13th at 10 a.m. at a city commission meeting, this will be completely ratified. It's not right at the moment, but there is the order out there. And the bottom line, what it does is it helps provide relief to city residents who are struggling with the FEMA 50% rule. So the city has issued an emergency order temporarily waiving the 5-year cumulative substantial improvement requirement for certain single-family residential properties located within the AE flood zone that suffered damage from Hurricane Ian. So basically what this means is that the building division of the Department of Neighborhood Development Services will only be looking at the current costs to return those homes to a pre-Hurricane Ian condition when determining whether repairs to a home reach a 50% threshold. Now, this will enable many residents to repair their homes without being subject to FEMA's 5-year cumulative regulations. In simple terms, they're not looking back at any prior work that was done and counting that as part of the 50% plan. And also, Cape Coral is instituting the same emergency order. So it behooves the public who are in these flood zones that have had significant damage to their home to attend December 13th at 10 a.m. at the city center and, ask the questions through public comment, make public comment, and listen to, what this emergency order is all about.
And they have several different ways of doing that. They don't necessarily have to attend the meeting in
That,
person, do they, anymore?
that is correct. You can do public comment online or again in person, or I believe you can also send an email to the city clerk. If you go on their website, I think you can see that. And also, I just want to let everybody know to be informed about this stuff. You can go out to your app store, and there's an app out there called North Report, and download that, and then you'll be able to see the city meetings. It's planning and zoning. It could be utilities. It could be the charter review board, city commission meetings. They also post the agendas for those meetings as the meetings get closer. And also you'll find this emergency order that you see up here among other city news under the section city news. And you scroll down and you'll see this emergency order for FEMA. And so it's a wealth of knowledge. It's a good idea for folks to download this and have this available. Get involved with your city, understand what's going on, especially during the emergency times of when we have hurricanes and stuff. So it's beneficial to all residents.
And really being an information pusher, like you are with Northport Forward, you're really just trying to get information on a real level playing field back to the citizens, correct?
That is the whole intent of why I sent this to you, is to put this out on your call. I know you do Mondays and Fridays. Also, what we've done, we have a constant contact list, Northport Forward, of people who have requested emails and different notifications from Northport Forward, who also have attended our meet and mingles with the city manager. So we sent this information out to, I think it's roughly about 600 residents. So, looking to get the word out. This is good to help people.
And that's kind of what Northport Forward is all about, right?
Right. It's about getting factual information out there. It's about alleviating any misinformation and disinformation. It's factual, plus it's to encourage dialogue. It's the city wants to hear from its residents. We all have a vested interest in making the city the best that it can be, so that we all we live here. We want to be able to work here. That's another item down the road. But these are things that getting involved is always a good thing. You understand where you're at, and you understand what is happening with the city. You understand why certain things are what they are, and it just makes life a lot easier.
Absolutely. And I appreciate the short notice of being on the show. I really want to give you guys kudos because you're doing a great job, and citizens really need to be paying attention to Northport Forward because it is a great source to get your news of Northport along with the city website. And just a small tad bit of advice: when somebody's talking, validate before you spread the word. Just make sure it's accurate before you put it out there on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. No better source than the horse's mouth. And truthfully, Northport Forward is not a place where you're going to go pick up bad news. You're going to pick up the news and the topics that you want to hear. So if you've got a topic that you want researched or gone over or included into what they do, please reach out to Northport Forward. They do a great job of getting you information straightforward and right about the topic. Is that pretty much on task there, Carmine?
It is, but I would encourage the citizens, the residents, to look at the city website, to download North Report, and there's a wealth of information there. And the city, they monitor that very closely, and you will get a quicker response in going there. We have to go through certain channels and whatnot to get information. If we hear anything, because we're monitoring different Facebook sites, and we're also monitoring Nextdoor, and I see some of the conversations and stuff that are happening, and I know the city is monitoring those as well. So when we can feed each other information and be able to put really what is happening out there, it quells the misinformation, and everybody can relax knowing the city is on top of it. And if the city isn't on top of it, they get informed about it, and then they quickly go into action. So it's we have to help each other.
Absolutely, and you do a great job, and I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on and at least inform the citizens about what you found out. Really is a straightforward message right from the city because you read it verbatim. So I appreciate your time and thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure, John and Vanessa. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.
All right, thanks for your time, buddy. I appreciate you.
Okay.
How do they find out more about Northport Report? I mean, is there a website? Is there a
Northport
is there a-
Report, especially on the
I'm sorry, not Northport Report. I was talking
Northport
about
Forward.
the group. Yes.
Yeah, northportforward.com is the best way to go out there and follow up with Northport Forward. Really, they do a great job. They're a fantastic group. Always trying to find out the positive side and the negative side of things, being very fair and drawing no lines in the sand. Pretty much just getting information out to people so that they can start the dialogue. So if things need to be changed, that people need to be more active in their city, and that's what they're trying to get you to do. So Vanessa,
Preaching the choir. I said you're preaching the choir, right?
well, we do this all the time, and our choir seems to be getting bigger. When you start adding one at a time, that's the bonus to this whole thing. You've done a little bit of research on the 50% rule. What's your take on the emergency order being put into play?
I'm gonna I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. The 50% rule is a federal requirement. It's based off of high risk areas. I know that the city has taken great pains over the last at least 25 years to try and reduce those building within those AE areas. And the bigger problem is that AE areas were expanded upon just somewhere around the last 10, 15 years. And so those people who may have originally thought that they were okay, they were in an X area, now are in AE and may not even know it. So that is a problem. But being a federal requirement and part of the national flood insurance, I'm not sure how this emergency ordinance will affect the flood insurance for the city as a whole. So that would be something that I guess the city attorney will have to find out. Because I know that if you were to just ignore that protocol that FEMA put in place, then our insurance rates could go up by 20%. And that's in addition to what they're already proposing because of all the hurricane issues. So, because we all know insurance is going to go up. I mean, we might as well just say that's a guarantee.
That's
Uh, you
that's
know,
actual.
Right. So, I mean, you add that on top of not abiding by the FEMA regulations, that is where my questions would be if I was on the board again. So that is pretty much my only concern because we have about 600 residents that are actually affected by this 50% rule. And out of those 600 residents, we really don't know how many of those 600 are even in that 50% rule. I mean, how many of the 600 had significant damage? Because I do know that many who are not in the AE had significant damage and will be over the 50%, where others who are in the AE don't have any damage at all.
Right.
So I'd be curious to know how many out of the 600 are truly affected. Um, Next
I'm
question is, out this rule saying we're not going to take the last 5 years in improvements, which personally I think is just the dumbest part of the whole entire rule, if you ask me. Why?
Oh, I lost you. I lost you.
Sorry, man.
All right, you're back.
Um,
All good.
yeah.
You,
Why would you even utilize that? Uh, because your previous improvements over the last 5 years have no rule, no standing on what your house is worth or its value or its market value or the amount of money it's going to cost to replace those items. I don't even understand what they were thinking there because honestly, let's look at the last 5 years. You're telling me that the same market value is in effect today as it was 5 years ago? Absolutely not. No way,
no,
shape, or form.
and I know they were calling for an independent appraisal as part of this process. So if you are close to that, the first thing that they're recommending is you call the city so that the city can walk you through a process because they truly are trying to do uh, not just the city, uh, 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 you know, keeping the city intact, but they're also trying to work with the citizens to try to make sure that this rule is in play, but hopefully won't take out your whole entire house because that could possibly happen to some along this path. Even with the 50% change or 50% rule changes, there's still going to be some people that are in low-lying areas that may not be able to rebuild the way they are today. There. That being
Well,
said,
if you're talking, are you based on the 50% rule? Is
yeah,
that what you mean?
Yeah.
Because according to 50% rule, you have to be in the AE zones.
Well, no,
And
that's what we're talking. You have to be in an A zone to have
yeah,
that happen. But low-lying areas, that's I'm incorporating that into the AE zone. We truly only have two zones. They everybody throws around all these other ones. The truth of the matter is, you've got AE and you've got X. And
correct.
X flood zone, you have no fear of this
Right.
rule. AE, my best guess is anybody in a flood zone. So let's play
It's
the
essentially anyone in a floodplain.
in
So
a
if
flood.
you look at,
So
right,
if
so
you
if
look
you
at
look
general
at the
development,
way,
if you look at our general development area over in the old section, that general development, even though those canals are lower, you're actually still in a flood in a lot of those areas. So you may not be in a flood zone across the street because you don't have a canal. So you have it, the best gauge to tell is talk to your insurance company, because if you have insurance, they will insist that you get flood insurance. Two, if you have a homeowner's policy on your home, or a financing
mhm.
on your home, they're going to require the flood in a flood zone.
And you can go to the property, Sarasota County Property
Sure.
Appraiser's
And pull it
website
up.
and pull up your address. You just search it by your address. Look at the very bottom of that page, and it's going to tell you what your parcel is in, whether it's an X, AE, or what have you. Um, so for instance, our property has three portions to it, and one of those three portions is in an AE, but it's a open field. I mean, it's nothing, no biggie. But I mean, I'm looking at the flood zone map, and it's literally maybe four or five streets that are affected, and most of those are over, in the Glen Allen area.
Yep.
The others are in, is that Chesebro, Al. Wow, you think they could make the maps a little bit better, huh? Cuthbert, um, oh, Calibra, in that area did get flooded pretty badly, but nothing like what we saw in the areas of the estates where, surprisingly, there's a lot of those houses that aren't in the AE zones according to the floodplain map. So, um, the streets are, don't get me wrong. So the infrastructure on the streets, having those covered would be a problem.
Well,
Um,
and you've been around here a long time, uh, but you're extremely young. Do that in there. But
right.
I'm just saying, you've
Yeah.
been dealing with the city of Northport for many years.
hmm
And I ran into a gentleman who said, uh, we do not have our infrastructure built correctly.
Oh,
Uh,
God, no.
and while it's true, this was not your normal storm either.
Mm-mm.
Uh, and we are addressing some of those issues that we have, but none of these.
We've been addressing, flooding. You have to remember, this isn't our first rodeo.
No,
It's not like this is the first time that Northport's ever flooded. Um, Hence the reason why the flood plain maps were addressed back in after the original flood in the 2002 era. Um, but honestly, remember that the drainage all flows from the north to the south. So our floodplains come from Manatee, Sarasota County. Um, it's a huge issue, and it takes more than just the city of Northport addressing its flooding, its drainage. We really need collaboration between everyone north. If you ever heard of a regional position, this is it. This is a regional subject that needs to have an address, because unfortunately we're like the bowl where everything flows down to, thanks to things that took place north of us. So, development that took place north of us that doesn't have the appropriate drainage ponds and retention now will flow to us, and it is nothing that the city of Northport did at all. So the city of Northport had a huge flooding type of study done in collaboration with the DEP, and it came up with some alternative ways to handle flooding in the future. But we're talking a 20-year program. I mean, it's not something that can be done overnight. Initially, they went through, they redid all of the gates, they've done improvements to a ton of infrastructures within the drainage facilities, within those weirs. And I have to tell you that in 2002, road and drainage was getting $49 a household. A household. $49.
Can't do
That was
much with
it.
it.
It was a flat fee. These guys were driving around in trucks with holes in the floorboards. I mean, it was atrocious what these people were working with. And to turn around and say that, the city's not doing is not, the city's responsible for this infrastructure issue. That's not true either. This infrastructure was in place back when general development started. So, when you're given a ball of crap to deal with, guess what? It's going to take a while to fix that. So I cannot blame road and drainage at this date, nor can I really blame it in the past, because you know what? They did the best they could with what they had. And honestly, that it needs to be addressed. I get that. But overall, they're doing a heck of a job. They really are.
What is it going to take? And I say this openly. What is it going to take to address this issue, do you think? And do you
Money.
think, well, but do you think the federal dollars are going to step in here at any time?
Hold on a second.
Right?
Sorry.
So the biggest question is, and I think it is for the city of Northport, is are we going to get some help on the federal side to get these things cleaned up? I know we've got Price Boulevard stepping in. Price Boulevard being addressed is going to be a big issue, and really kind of clean some things up. And now it's going to be readdressed into a different fashion. But the question back to you is that do you think the federal dollars will step in and try to help us at this point? Seeing as that Ron DeSantis was actually here and saw the devastation.
Well, you're talking about federal dollars. You're not talking about state dollars.
And I've state and fed. How about that?
I think that there will be some help. I do, but there's been help. I don't want people to believe that there's never been help until now, until this. I can tell you that we've had a lot of help over the years from the state in upgrading our systems. And I am hopeful that the federal programs will now see that there is truly a need to help support those improvements. The state has always understood. I really can't say anything bad about that. But there's only so many dollars that can be spread so far. And I have a funny feeling that Fort Myers is really going to get a bulk of that money because Fort Myers Beach was devastated. I mean, that's my, I spent many summers in Fort Myers Beach on Estero Island before it became this mega, population for all those wanting to come play. But I mean, to see the destruction that happened to that land is shocking. Compared to what we saw, 5-6 feet of water, the massive wind damage. I mean, granted, we had 7 solid hours in that eye wall that nobody could have ever anticipated. And I pray to God we never see that again. But if you look at that mass amount of population and a large scale, that bird's eye view in Florida, you have to wonder how much money is really going to be able to be divvied up between the whole state, because that's how the state works, right? And then similarly, you have your federal government who's more concerned about wildfires in California. Anyways, that now let's look at it that bird's eye view and say, okay, how much is going to get divvied up to the state of Florida? So, am I hopeful? Yes. Realistically, we'll probably get a smaller proportionate share of it, considering what the effects were in a statewide level. I mean, that's just being honest.
That's all right. Honest is the best way to go. But
Yeah.
I want to step back for a second, because we had a lot of people when there was a particular vehicle that was purchased uh, ask why it was needed, and that's the
Yeah.
amphibious vehicle that we have to clean our canals.
Yeah.
And you weren't you part of that whole process?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Can you give an
thank God.
overview of that?
Well, you're talking about which one are you talking about? Because really the concern was with the police department's vehicle. That's the process I was part of. You're talking about the amphibious vehicle for road and drainage, which I believe took place after I left.
Okay.
But honestly, let's face it, we've had
But didn't we, hold 1 second, didn't we use both of those vehicles, one prior to all
absolutely.
this, and then we also
Oh,
used the police vehicle during this situation to help rescue people?
absolutely. Not only this one, but last year's flood in June. Not 2022, but 2021, when we had flooding take place out in the estates. Um, yeah, I mean that was used continuously. So it has definitely earned its money. Um, but let's face it, the top priority when it comes to drainage is you have to keep these drainage ditches, what we call R ditches, clear of debris. Of course, there's some like cattails and items like that where it doesn't really cause so much of a problem as far as it, stopping the water flow. But there are times when you'll have a tree growing in an R ditch, or even in the case of Ian, you're going to have quite a bit of debris, as in, structural debris in those R ditches now. And so, but the piece of equipment that was purchased, from what I remember, was to allow a person to be on the side of these hills, because I call them hills. They're quite steep. I am not taking a lawnmower, on the side of that hill, and so that they can stay and still have the arm go out. They don't have to be inside of the ditch itself, and cause damage to the ditch by being inside of it. Having a case, many times, they had those what looked like spiders, and they flipped over, constantly flipped over, and that was like back in the beginning of time. Um, and I just remember always hearing about another one being pulled out, and Commissioner Rich would.
We lost you again. So we're
Sorry, I
talking.
keep getting a phone call. That's what the
Wow,
problem is.
that's why it's cutting out.
I know. Anyways,
That's what happens when you're so daggone important.
something like that. Yeah.
But so when you went through all of that as a commissioner, and this is just kind of like a, a warning for any future deals that are like that. Um, what was your mindset as you approached the amphibious vehicle for the police department, and the guff that you took back from it? What would you say you learned from that whole process for anybody who may have to vote on something like that again in the future?
I think that, in my particular case, I was I had a little bit more institutional knowledge because I was here for those 2002 floods. And I've seen the destruction that's possible. So I don't, the problem is we have so many new people, and the majority of those that were, giving so many problems about, purchasing this vehicle had not been here for those 2002 floods. I mean, the majority of them. So, and then there were others who just, it really didn't matter what we bought. It could have been a $5, hubcap and it would have been a
Right.
complaint. But the point is that honestly, without that kind of that history, that knowledge of what has taken place over the years, and how crucial it was to get people out of there, and how difficult it was to take the, two airboats that we had in the city and actually get people out in a timely fashion. Um, It'll change your mind real quick. Not only that, there was also incidences where the police were involved in shootings where people were shooting at police officers, and so you add all that historical information and knowledge up, and you say, yeah, this is a really good idea. Um, because how do you put a cost on a life? I'll never understand that. Um, and that's what this was about. You're going to get the best bang for your buck. And not only did it have a dual service to it, in addition to that, there was this whole maintenance portion of it that was going to, save money down the road. So long story short, you're going to get your naysayers. I mean, it doesn't matter what you say, what you do. I mean, you could go with them and their decision making all day long, and then on the other side is going to be naysayers. So you're never going to be right to 100% of the people. The only thing you can do is do your homework, do your research, and make a decision based on facts, not what people feel, not what people say, but facts, and facts only.
And, I'm going to ask you this because you have the unique opportunity to look back at 12 years of being on a commission. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
those 12 years you spent on commission making decisions. I'm going to ask you in this way. We are a bigger city than when you first became a city commissioner.
Oh yeah.
You remember the population count then?
I want to say it was like 26,000.
Yeah, I was going to say 26, 27. So,
Yeah.
what's amazing is we're talking about roughly 70 to 80 now, and,
Yeah. Yep.
and we're not done. This
Yes.
city is growing, and sometimes the city has to start addressing big city questions maybe before they think they're ready to, because they're growing so quickly. Do you think that kind of fits the definition of Northport?
Absolutely. Yeah. And honestly, I think that there's been some great strides, or a lot of great things have happened over the last year, or two, that do place us in that higher level. Just the hiring of the city manager will place us in that higher level
Who's been,
because he does
by the way,
bring,
who's been absolutely phenomenal.
he really is. And, he brings a higher level of professionalism that the city has needed and please don't get me wrong, I am not, uh, you know, saying anything negative about any of our past city managers. We've had some incredible city managers. Mark Roth, I miss him every single day. But point is that, we brought someone in on a higher level, on a national level. And I think that is going to create a level of professionalism. We've seen commissioners become elected that are on a higher level of professionalism. And again, I'm not saying anything negative about past commissioners. I'm part of them. But I think you're seeing a better quality. Now, granted, I still have an issue with having all retirees, because that's what's going to happen in the next 6 years. You'll have an entire board made up of retirees. But is that what our population's shifting to? So you have to kind of look at the two side by side. When I was elected, I was a working mom, and that's what the majority of our population was, my age and, with children. And so I represented something that was underrepresented for so many years because it was all retirees. Well, maybe we are shifting to the retiree phase where people are more likely to, not be working and not have children. And maybe that's some of the things we need to start addressing. Maybe this is, all kind of fluent as to what our, reflecting what it is that we do need. It's hard to say. You'd have to really check the data on that. But the point is that you do see, like I said, a higher level, a more professional, more understanding of how government works and understanding of I can't look at the here and now. I can't be laser focused on this second. I really need to look at now, but the next 5 years. And how does this look? Because without that ability to see beyond, your two front teeth, your two front feet, you're really not going to be an accomplished commissioner in any way, shape, or form. And that goes for our employees as well in the city of the North Port. I mean, some of the managers that we've hired, some of even just right down to the employees that we've hired are incredibly talented individuals. And they bring another level of professionalism because they know what they're talking about. We're no longer getting, well, it could be this and it could be that, So I'm really looking forward to the next 10 years here, because I think that you're going to see in a matter of probably 4 years just this shift from mid-grade to high level. And I think it's going to be really something to see.
And how important do you think it is for citizens who are in a flood zone to engage in the meeting on December 13th at 10 a.m.?
Well, first of all, they need to find out if they're in a flood zone and the AE zone specifically.
Right.
And you can do that by, as Carmine said, you can download the Northport report, follow the link. You can also go to Sarasota County Property Appraisers, just, like I said earlier, type your address in, look on the bottom. It'll say AEX, or it might have nothing in there. But I think that at any commission meeting that affects you or even doesn't affect you, it affects remember that this does affect us.
It does.
I mean, let's face it, whether you're part of that flood zone or if you're a general public getting flood insurance, this affects you. So get into that 10 a.m. meeting if you can, which again, 10 a.m., no one my age can get there. They're working. And you can also put in your public comment. But something about the public comment, I just want to make sure everyone understands there is a deadline. So if you're going to do it by email, both to the city clerk or within the context of the meeting itself, for public comment, there's a deadline, and it used to be that it was the day before at 5 p.m. you had to get that public comment in. I'm not sure if that's changed. I don't know if it's the same, but you really need to get that public comment in prior to the meeting, so know what you want to say. Now, if you're there live, that's a totally different story. You can put your public comment in at the beginning of the meeting. But and our mayor now does not play games. She is let's go. And I love it. You know me, I love that because
Right.
it's let's get this done. This is a woman after my own heart, you know. Um, and so I will tell you, she understands the sensitivity of the subject, but I can tell you there's not going to be any playing games. You know, yelling, screaming from the open gallery is not going to happen. And you know, things are going to be done expeditiously, but yet professionally. And that's one of the great things. We've had some great leaders in this city. The uh, Mayor Emmerich, Mayor Langdon. The two of them are phenomenal individuals, just as humans. But they really did I mean, uh, Pete did a fantastic job as a mayor, and I tell him all the time he shocked me. But as far as you know, and I knew that Mayor Langdon would do a phenomenal job, and she's proving it. So I'm not worried about that at all. But honestly, if you want it, you know, my grandfather always said, you want to be part of the problem, you better be part of that process. So, or if you don't want to be part of the problem, you better be part of that process. And so being part of that process is either attending, putting in your 2 cents by public comment, watching the meeting, you know, doing the research, because within a week prior to that meeting, you're going to have your emergency ordinance online and what the staff says and any, you know, due diligence that they've done ahead of time. So those are all parts of making sure that you're an educated community, and educated communities make correct decisions when it comes to the voting booth.
You know, I didn't prep you for this, but I'm going to ask you um, to talk a little bit about Fred Tower.
Mm, mm. Yeah, not funny.
No.
I was in Tennessee when I found out about Fred, and he was an amazing individual. Man, him and I butt heads like you could not believe when we were on the commission together. But yet, when we were a team you couldn't really beat. I mean, Sumter Boulevard is a pure case of that. Um, Fred had started the work on discussions about that widening being covered by, you know, the state uh, funding. And then I just carried what he began over, and and then Commissioner Garofalo carried it from there, because remember it was done in like 3 phases.
Right.
So he was just the sweetest guy you ever want to meet. He really was, and his wife is just amazing. She and my daughter were like best buds at many of her retreats and stuff, and they'd go out shopping while him and I were stuck doing work. But he was my very first treasurer in my city race. That's how far back we go. Um, he was with me when we went and did the hospital deal, and you know, and took our trip to Tallahassee. Um, he really had this unbelievable love for the city and its people, and he was also the type of person that no matter how much you threw at him, he never let it affect him. He just wouldn't. He just, yeah, you can talk about me all you want, it just doesn't affect me. Um, It was a different time though. You know, back then it was easier to not let things affect you. They weren't so vile as they are today.
And they weren't
But
plastered all over social media back then.
we didn't have social media. You got that right. I mean, geez, anyone that had social media was MySpace, and you couldn't do that kind of stuff. But he was just amazing. He really was, and to hear about that loss was pretty shocking to me. But um, if you had asked him about how he felt in life, I would guarantee you that he felt complete and whole. Um, Lydia was the love of his life. He could not love that woman anymore. Um, and I think he was happy where he was.
I gotta believe that too. Him and Jim Blucher were quite the team together, and I know that Jim's got to feel like there's a golf partner lost, and a best friend lost out there, and so I wanted to at least give you a chance, because you have had ties with so many of the commissioners, and
Yeah.
they're not. He's not. He's just the recent one who passed. Um,
Yeah, we've had a lot. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yep.
it's one of those questions that I don't even like to ask. Believe it or
Right.
not, it's 'cause I already know the answers,
Yeah.
because I felt the same way about him that you do. Um,
And you were
but
here too, you were here with us all throughout it
absolutely,
all. So,
yeah.
yeah.
So, the beautiful thing about being part of this town for so long is that the 20,000 that we had before
Right.
is three times, four times that amount now.
Yeah.
And I still
Yeah.
feel like our city has a groundedness about it. I wanted to grow. I wanted to grow in just stages that are unbelievable. And I
Largest small town there is, right?
love a small
We
town,
always said that. Yep, the
honest to
largest
God.
small town.
And
And if you think about it, when I started the term, uh, you know, back in 2002, I want to say it was like 26,000, let's just say. When I ended the term in my first term in 2006, we were at 50,000. So that 50,000 was an incredibly important mark, and people couldn't understand that because once you hit that 50,000 mark, you get more funding allocated to you through the sales tax, through a different federal monies that come in and state monies because it all goes by proportionate fair share, which is based off of population. So meeting that 50,000 mark was very important. We met it. Now there's another, step that you have to get to, which I believe is like the 75,000 or it's the 100,000, I'm not sure, where you get a more proportionate fair share. So population, while it can cause a problem, it does, that's the plus side, is that the more population you have, the more proportionate fair share you have, and then that relieves the amount of tax burden to those who reside here. And it's kind of similar with commercial property. And so, I think it's important for people to understand that. And but if you think about it, like I said, 25, 50. I left and I want to say we were knocking on 60,000 and then come back and we're at almost 80,000. It's like, we've just jumped consistently and constantly. And I'd like to think that we really did it in a in a growth manner that prevented things like what our discussion was today, buildings in floodplains. 600 people or 600 residents out of a population of 80,000. Think about that for a minute. That's huge.
yeah,
You
it is.
know,
It
that's
is.
huge.
And we've only got a minute left, but highlight again, what people can do that are in a flood zone now, that want to get the information from the city directly, and that date and everything's right there on the screen with you. So if you need to use
Well,
that.
first and foremost, I think that if you find out that you're in a floodplain and you don't want to wait until December 18th, you can always call the building department. Call the building department, email the building department. I can tell you that Applegate is an amazing person and he's doing an incredible job at the building department. I love him. Always loved him. But I think that the building department is always open and welcome to answer your questions about that specifically. In addition, you can contact your insurance agent, like you said. Now, if you want to go further about this emergency ordinance and determine how it's going to affect you, because you know you're one of those 600 people, then you need to be involved in this conversation. You need to be either at the meeting, you need to put in your public comment after you read the backup, after you determine what the facts are. Then, put your public comment in a timely fashion because, again, there is a deadline for that public comment to come in. But, honestly, the city is always open. You can write your commissioners by email. You can call them. You can show up at the front desk and ask for an appointment. There's so many different ways that you can contact this commission because I can tell you that the city of Northport is probably one of the few governments that are truly open to the public. I know that as long as I've served, that open to the public meant something. The Sunshine Law, the public records, all of it has always been of the utmost importance in the city of Northport. And with that said, no matter how you try and reach out to them, somebody is going to get back to you.
Absolutely. Well, it was a pleasure having you on the show today. Citizens out there, if you hear anybody that's just talking about different things, please don't take their word. Check it out first. Any FEMA rejection, take 3 rejections first before you do anything. Find out what's
Yep.
wrong with your application. Find out what's wrong with the process. There's a lot of help out there. The Chamber of Commerce is here to help. The city of Northport is been very, very good about it. There's lots of FEMA information out there. Also, if you have any questions whatsoever, you can always call me at 941-391-4663. And if I can't answer your question, I can definitely find you someone who can.
Mm-hmm.
And that way you're not listening to a neighbor tell you there's a rejection story out there. Everybody's different. Please take 3 rejections before you hammer this thing closed. Okay. So that's my tidbit of information for y'all. Have a great night, Vanessa. Thanks for being part of the show. And it's Friday.
You too, man. I know.
All right. Thanks, babe. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.